Good evening, everyone. My name is Cesar Garcia, and I would like to welcome you again to our live stream of the 2026 District 5 Candidate Forum. We had a few technical issues, but I hope everybody will be joining us at home. I would like to start by thanking everybody who came here and who is watching at home, and also our candidates, our moderator, as well as staff from the Democracy Voucher Program. And actually, I would like to start by introducing you to Feren Amar, who works for the Democracy Voucher Program, and who is going to tell us more about that program, okay? Feren, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Much better now.
Yeah.
Feren, what can you tell us about the Democracy Voucher Program and how to use it, how to receive them, just everything?
Hi, everyone. I'm Fedin. I'm the Democracy Vouchers Public Relations Specialist. Thank you for having me here tonight. I'm excited to share some information about the program with you. So the Democracy Voucher Program provides $100 in vouchers to City of Seattle residents that they can use to donate to candidates running for office in Seattle. So the program has two main goals. The first goal is to increase the number of Seattle residents who can donate to and support local campaigns. And the second goal is to increase the number of candidates who can run for office by providing a more accessible funding source. So typically, each Seattle election year, we send out 4 $25 democracy vouchers to all registered voters in the city of Seattle. But this year, we are doing things differently because there is a special election in District 5. So this year, we are only sending democracy vouchers out to District 5 residents, and they will be receiving 2 $50 democracy vouchers that they can donate to candidates running for City Council Position 5. So to meet the eligibility requirements to use democracy vouchers, you must be at least 18 years old, you must be a Seattle resident, and you must be a U.S. citizen, a green card holder, or a U.S. national. So we already started sending out the democracy vouchers in the mail to District 5 voters, and we will continue to do that throughout the year as people update their voter registration information. But you do not have to be a registered voter to use democracy vouchers. If you meet the eligibility requirements, you can contact our office to apply to receive vouchers. If you lose or misplace your vouchers or just miss them in the mail, you can also request replacements by contacting our office or by talking to me and my colleague Jennifer tonight, so we can get those replacements sent out to you. We can also get you replacements sent out in your preferred language. So to use your democracy vouchers, the first step is to do your research on the candidates. We have information about the candidates on the Democracy Voucher website, and each of the candidates also has a campaign website, so you can learn a lot more on there about them. And once you decide who to give your vouchers to, you would then write the name of the candidate on each voucher and then sign and date each one. The voucher packet comes with a postage-paid envelope, so once you're done filling out the vouchers, you would then put them in the postage-paid envelope and mail it back to our office. Once we receive the vouchers at our office, we then take them through a verification process, and then we distribute the funds to the candidate. And that is how the Democracy Voucher Program works.
Thank you so much. That was a great explanation of how the program works. I feel like you can do it many times and it will sound perfect every time. Thank you so much. Well, now I'm going to introduce you to our moderator tonight. His name is Marlon Cisney, and he is the president of the Data Guys, or Data Guys, depending how you pronounce it, a mission-driven data and AI firm helping nonprofits and state and local organizations measure and amplify their social impact through more modern data systems. Dave Marlon was appointed by the Seattle mayor to the Community Technology Advisory Board, position 2. Through this, as a commissioner, he brings a grounded belief to his work. That the data doesn't lie. It reveals who's been left out, where change is needed, and what it will take to get it right. So thank you, Dave Marlon. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you, Cesar, and good evening, everyone. My name is Marlon Sisney, but please feel free to call me D, the data guy. And yes, the data does not lie. And I will be your moderator tonight for the District 5 Candidate Forum. First, I just want to acknowledge the space that we are in right now. It's very powerful to see community show up like this. This is what local democracy looks like, right? People being engaged, people asking questions, and holding leadership accountable, right? Tonight is really about one big thing, and that's solutions. Not just the challenges, right? We know what the challenges are. You all have voiced what the challenges are. We have 6 categories around what those challenges are, but how are we actually moving forward as a district and as a city? So my role tonight is to really guide the conversation, keep us on time, and make sure that we're creating a space for clear, thoughtful, and engaging responses that reflect what the community has been asking for. I also would like to encourage everyone to visit seattle.gov/democracy voucher to learn more about how you can participate in local elections and support candidates through the Democracy Voucher program. All right, let's get started, shall we? So I want to walk through tonight's flow so that everyone knows what to expect. First, we will have opening remarks. Each candidate will have 1 minute to introduce themselves, their story, and why they're running to represent District 5. We'll then move into the 6 key topics that I was talking about earlier, based directly on community input. Those 6 topics are community voices, connectivity and transportation, economic development, housing, infrastructure and community development, and lastly, public safety. I'll share the context of every question, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond. After that, we'll open it up to the audience for questions. We have 3 curated questions by our youth up here that we will take from the audience. And finally, each candidate will have 1 minute for closing remarks as to why they feel that they've earned you all's support. A quick note on timing, so everyone knows about timing. You'll hear a bell ring right up here at 10 seconds, when 10 seconds is remaining, and again when the time is up. I'll respectfully step in if needed, just to ensure that we're staying on track with time. So with that, let's begin with opening remarks. Each candidate will have 1 minute, and we'll start with the candidate on the left.
Hello, I'm Silas. I'm the candidate on the left. I'm a healthcare educator. I'm an advocate and I'm a researcher, and I'm disabled. When I was 15, I was assaulted and sustained a traumatic brain injury. As I recovered, I was thrown... As I recovered, I was thrown into a confusing maze of public benefit systems. I had to learn to navigate these systems just to survive. That experience shaped my entire life. Over the last 30 years, I've become an expert and helped countless people move through the same systems that are failing District 5 right now. Housing, healthcare, food security. I've seen people give up benefits they were entitled to just because the process was too complex and they got deterred. I've also seen people wait for months for callbacks that never came while they're in their cars. District 5, our systems are broken. But it doesn't have to be this way. That's why I'm running for city council. I know where the gaps are, and I know how to mend them. I have a comprehensive set of policies at silasforseattle.com.
Awesome. Thank you. We'll move forward with candidate Kong.
Good evening. My name is Julie Kong. I've been walking Seattle since the pandemic, and most recently in the last few months with Seattle D5 to connect with neighbors, support small businesses, and to activate open spaces with positivity. As an only child, married to an only child, Seattle Chosen Family is my family, and my neighbors matter. I'm an immigrant, an educator, and a union member. We built our family here. The experience shaped how I lead. I know what stability, opportunity, and community support can mean, and I also understand how city decisions impact working families, small businesses, and immigrants in everyday life. I just don't talk about D5, I walk it. I observe and listen to our neighbors. I will build a district where people can live, work, belong, and thrive.
Appreciate you, Candidate Kong. And last but certainly not least, Candidate Jinx.
Hi, I'm Nilu Jenks, and I'm running for Seattle City Council, District 5, and I'm grateful to be here today. I decided to run for City Council because I believe that cities like Seattle must show that progressive values with a pragmatic focus can deliver real results for our people. I'm an Iranian American, and I live in Lake City with my husband, Rob, and our 2 children. I've been a PTA advocacy chair, a learning coach for language learner students, and I'm currently the political and partnerships director for Fair Vote Washington, where I work on democracy and voting rights. I've spent years working to make sure every voice counts. But still, I'm not a politician. I'm your neighbor, and I'm running because District 5 deserves a council member who shows up, who listens, and who delivers on housing and affordability, on food access, on childcare, and on a city that actually works for working people. I'm focused on what it takes to make things work better in our neighborhoods, and I'm excited to share that with you tonight.
Awesome. Thank you, Candidate Jinx. Now we're going to move into the core of tonight's conversation, the issues that came directly from community. These are real concerns, right? These are real lived experiences, and these are real expectations and issues that community has come up with. So topic 1 is community voice. What we've heard is that many residents haven't felt connected to their council members, and that the culture of engagement hasn't always felt welcoming. Especially for our youth, for our seniors, people with disabilities, and communities of color. So the question is, how would you ensure that all communities in District 5 feel genuinely heard and represented? Each candidate will have 2 minutes, and since we started with Silas last time, Candidate James, we will start with Candidate Jinx for this one.
I hear this frustration constantly at the door. I have knocked a lot of doors. People feel like they've been talked at, not listened to. And the community comments are right. It starts with culture. The culture of your office reflects the culture of your leadership. And as someone who works on partnerships and coalition building, I know how important building these relationships are. Here's what I'll do. First, I will hold weekly drop-in office hours here in District 5, not downtown and not by appointment, in neighborhoods where people live, because the people who are most affected by council decisions should not have to navigate City Hall bureaucracy to be heard. Second, the community comment about legislative assistance is spot on. My staff will reflect the wonderful diversity of this district and will understand the problems we are facing. I will prioritize people who live here for these jobs, not people who just nod and agree and then forget. Third, I want to name something specific. I will make sure you see me here in district, where we all live. That means attending community group meetings, senior center lunches, youth programs, disability advocacy forums, not just expecting people to come to me. I already do this work. My governing philosophy is simple. Policy should start with the people most impacted. Data and evidence sharpen our approach, but community voices shape the agenda. And that's not just a slogan for me, it's how I worked my entire career. From organizing a gun buyback with the sheriff's office to co-writing a racial equity curriculum with Roosevelt alumni to be used in local high schools. I don't just listen, I show up and I follow through.
Awesome. Thank you, Candidate Jinx. And now we'll move to Candidate Kong.
Thank you for that question, because this is really at the heart of what's missing in D5. For too long, people haven't felt real connections to their elected members, and I've heard that directly at the doorsteps as well. People telling me no one has shown up, no one has asked for their democracy vouchers, and no one has followed up. So the first thing I'll do, and what I'm already doing, is to be a loud, consistent, visible presence in D5. I don't just talk about D5, I walk it, but showing up isn't enough. We have to build systems that make people feel welcome and heard. So here are some 3 concrete things that I'll commit to. First, build an accessible and community-rooted district office. That means multilingual language services, flexible hours, including evenings and weekends, and meeting people where they're at. Second, hire staff who reflect D5. I will hire a team with lived experiences, people who understand immigrant and communities, youth perspectives, disability access, and cultural nuance. So interactions are respectful and responsive. Culturally, I am Korean American, but I want to ensure that we reflect the diversity of D5, and I already have 2 born and raised D5 members on my team, treasurer who lives in D5, and a campaign address in North Seattle. Third, create structures for ongoing communication input. And that means include advisory youth groups, listening sessions, and partnership with trusted community organizations, such as the one hosting us tonight. But what's important is closing the loop so that they know where their inputs were received and how we're gonna move forward.
Awesome. Thank you, candidate Kong. And now we will move to candidate James.
Hello.
We can also have one of those microphones for you because it seems that it's very
Oh,
we need to change mic.
I'm a little soft speaker.
And
Should I do double?
Yes, and then I'm gonna remove this.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and we're gonna change it to you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, like, signal me if I'm speaking too softly or if I have the mic too far away. Okay. Hi. I'm also disappointed by the lack of access to our appointed representative in District 5. District 5 deserves more representation, more advocacy, more say in our city's future. I see a lot of people I know here, a lot of familiar faces, and I'm sure there's more on the live stream. So many of you know that I'm already in the community. May have seen me at Lake City Art Walk, or the Farmers Market, 10 City 4, Highland Lake Community Club. And I hope to do health advocacy training with Lake City Collective. And I'm just committed to seeking out the voices of the most vulnerable people in our district. These are people who are the most impacted by the policies, but often have the least ability to advocate for themselves. That's because when you're in crisis, you don't really have time to call or go to your representative's office. The result is that these people who are most impacted are often not heard at all. I know that if we solve a problem for people who are the most impacted, it will be a solution that works for everyone. I'll connect, that's how I do research, that's what I do with community activism, and that's how I'll be as a council member. I'll connect with neighborhood organizations, faith groups, community activists, parent groups, business organizations. I'm committed to working with unions, both labor and tenants unions. I'm also committed to being accessible as a council member. I'll host town halls, seek participation in focus groups, and policy discussions. I'll make sure that my legislative assistants are active in the community.
Awesome. Thank you so much, candidate James. I heard, a mix of things here, from drop-in to community comments being taken in, to being present in the district, to being loud and in a consistent presence and building that community office and hiring the diverse staff, and then even paying attention to the voices of those that are the most vulnerable, and ensuring that we have the partnerships with both the community-based organizations, the unions, et cetera. Now, being heard, I'm curious, transitioning to the next question, and being heard and showing up, how does that show up in our physical design of our city? So topic 2 is all around connectivity and transportation, So we've seen real safety concerns, pedestrian injuries, fatalities, and also tension just around transit design, around bike lanes, around sidewalks, right, and just overall accessibility. So how do you all balance safety and connectivity across all users? And that's drivers, cyclists, that's pedestrians, right, and those with mobility needs in a way that feels equitable. And with this question, I will start with candidate Kong.
Thank you. Because in D5, it's about whether people can move safely and rely on our daily lives. And the reality is, we've had too many injuries and lost lives. Safety is non-negotiable. So here's how I would approach in a balanced, actionable way. First, prioritize safety investments where the data shows the great risk. We know where the high injury corridors are. I will push SDOT to accelerate improvements, safer crossings, better lighting, traffic calming, and sidewalks. We cannot accept preventable tragedies. Second, bring all users into the decision-making process early, not after the decisions are made. That means structured engagement with pedestrians, people with disabilities, transit riders, drivers, and small businesses before final designs. Too often, people feel that designs and decisions are done to them, not with them. Third, improve transit reliability and connectivity. I've heard concerns about Route 77 and congestions, and I'm also concerned because I'm a light rail rider and I'm eager to take the 77 bus line. We need to evaluate what's working and what's not, and when we don't have things that work, we have to adjust. That includes advocating with Metro for better east-west connections. Fourth, build infrastructures that works together. Bike lanes, sidewalks, transit, and vehicle access should not feel like trade-offs. Without thoughtful designs and phasing, I think we can make things better. And finally, we need accountability. If a project slows down, we need to make sure that we revisit and improve. I don't just want to talk about these streets. I walk them and rely on the transit. I've seen what's unsafe and where connectivity breaks down. Transportation is really about safety and process.
Thank you, candidate Kong. And next we will move to candidate James.
Okay. Hi. I just want to say, of course, people shouldn't be dying on our streets. These tragedies are avoidable and should not have happened. We need safer streets. We need more crosswalks with signals, sidewalks with drop curbs where there aren't any. The part of the question about engaging with all the groups, cyclists, pedestrians, drivers, micromobility, and wheelchair users, I'll refer to my previous answer about always engaging with people who are the most impacted. I always want to understand the problem completely, and that means talking to all the impacted groups. Again, because if we understand the needs of the most impacted and find a solution that works for them, we solve the problem for everybody. Universal design is design meant to suit the needs of all ages, sizes, and abilities. To accomplish this, we need to hear all the voices before we identify a solution. For example, drop curbs. People with strollers, carts, bikes, they all benefit from drop curbs, but they're designed for wheelchair users. As a wheelchair user myself, someone who needs a car just to get to public transportation, I understand that having underrepresented voices like mine is essential in these discussions. I advocated for accessible and inclusive transportation solutions when I was the chair of Seattle Disability Commission, and outside of that, I met with SDOT multiple times to discuss access. I've been in focus groups about neighborhood hubs and transportation solutions for people with all types of needs. I'm a strong advocate for neighborhood hubs to increase the density throughout the entire city. But we also need rapid transit from neighborhood hub to transportation hubs, and I think all that transportation should be free.
Thank you, candidate James. And last but not least, candidate Jinx.
I'm just used to the mic. 20 people killed on Lake City and Aurora in 10 years. We also had a neighbor killed on Sandpoint Way, the street on which I live, just this past year. These are not statistics. These are our neighbors. We have to do better, and we have to do it while keeping our community connected. Let me start with something we all know. North Seattle is the last part of this city without a complete sidewalk network. Kids are walking to school on the shoulder of the road. Folks in wheelchairs have nowhere to go but the street. That's unacceptable, and making it a priority is one of the first things I will push for. And the focus will be on those whose lives and livelihoods are most impacted. On Route 77 and bike lane concerns, I hear the frustration. The reality is that we need both safe cycling infrastructure and reliable bus service. Those don't have to be in conflict, but they require better coordination from SDOT than we've been getting. I will push SDOT to do genuine community engagement before projects are finalized, not after, so that they understand the bus routes that we want, including ones that take us north out of the city. And for the Greenwood to Lake City connection along 145th, I support it. East-West transit in North Seattle is terrible, and Metro should hear from the council that District 5 residents need crosstown routes, not just downtown spokes. We need a bus system that meets our community needs and takes us to our local businesses and to our neighbors and communities. I support expanding bus frequency and reliability over road expansion. We need protected bike lanes, traffic calming, stronger Vision Zero implementation, and free student transit for all students, including college students. But the key to balancing all these needs is bringing every user to the table before decisions get made, not after the concrete is poured.
Thank you, Candidate Jinks. I heard a slew of things just with this question as well around the need to use the data as a tool for social impact. And I love that, right? And how do we use that data to build the systems, to get the outcomes, to lead to accountability as well? But also understanding that there needs to be coordination, right, amongst these stakeholders and getting everybody to the table as well. So thank you for all of that. And then again, bringing those with that lived experience part of the conversation. Now let's talk about the economic reality many residents and businesses are navigating right now, right? So topic 3 is all around economic development. We're hearing loud and clear that small businesses are struggling. Break-ins, rising rents, declining sales, right? And that resources aren't always reaching beyond those core business districts. So the question is, what concrete steps would you take to support small businesses across all of District 5, not just centralized areas, and address issues like crime and unpermitted vendors? And with this, I will start with Candidate Jinks.
Okay. Well, my parents were small business owners. I know small businesses are the backbone of our neighborhoods, and they need and deserve our support. And the community comments are right. The city has concentrated its attention on a few business districts while leaving everyone else behind. That has to change. So first, on decentralizing resources. I will push to expand small business grants, technical assistance, and city marketing support to businesses outside of the designated BIAs. A restaurant on 35th Northeast or a hair salon on Greenwood Avenue deserves the same support as businesses in the Pike Place or Capitol Hill corridor. I'll advocate for a neighborhood business liaison model, a point of contact at the city for small businesses in D5 who will need to navigate permits and accessing capital or dealing with property crime. We should also look at commercial rent stabilization. On break-ins and burglaries, I take this seriously. My friends have had their stores experience these burglaries and have reached out to me. Small businesses can't absorb these losses, so I'll push for faster police response to commercial property crimes and for the city to fund storefront security grants for small businesses that can't afford alarm systems or cameras on their own. On unpermitted food vendors, I want to be direct. I support food entrepreneurship. It's how my family as immigrants did really well, and many of these vendors are immigrants and people of color trying to make a living. The answer isn't a crackdown. It's creating an accessible, affordable permitting pathway so vendors can afford to operate safely and legally, which also protects public health and levels the playing field for permitted businesses. And I'll keep fighting to address the food desert Fred Meyer left behind in Lake City through community food co-ops, expanded farmers markets, and zoning that brings grocery back to our neighborhood. I just want to say here, I live in Lake City. This is not an issue I will forget. This is a medicine and food desert.
Thank you, candidate Jinx. Now on to candidate Kong.
Yes, so I have been walking and talking directly with small business owners in D5, and they're telling me the same thing. They need support to survive. We're seeing rising costs, break-in, and declining foot traffic, and resources concentrated in few areas. So I'll focus on 4 concrete things. First, safety for small businesses. We need faster response time, better lighting, and coordinated support. I will push for a small business safety package so businesses aren't left to absorb these costs alone. Second, decentralized investments across D5 and city. I will advocate for equitable distribution of city resources so that corridors and neighborhood clusters across D5 will receive consistent support, activation, and visibility. Third, address affordability and keep businesses in place. Rising commercial rents are pushing people out, and I will work with the city to explore tools like small business stabilization funds, technical assistance, and partnerships that help local businesses thrive. Last, create fairness around unpermitted vendors. We need to protect public health and ensure fairness. That means enforcing basic standards, but also creating clear, accessible pathways for vendors to become permitted and operate safely. And I want to be clear, yes, we are experiencing the food desert in Lake City, and bringing a grocery store back is not just economic development. It's about basic dignity and access. I don't just talk about D5. I walk it. I've seen these challenges firsthand. And this work is about turning listening into action, and I will make sure our small businesses are a part of the solution.
Thank you, candidate Kong. Last but not least, candidate James.
Thank you. Yeah, the current economic situation is very difficult. And, sorry, I'll start that over. Can I reset on time? The current economic situation is difficult. Crime, reduced sales, and increasing rents are all real issues facing small businesses in D5. I have 3 steps for addressing these issues. 1, resume the Restored Seattle program that puts pop-up businesses, vendors, and artists in vacant buildings, offering both small businesses and property owners financial support. This program has been put on hold in Lake City. This will increase foot traffic and decrease opportunities for crime. I'm also just want to say that I'm really excited about the Reuse Commons that's coming to Lake City soon. It's a project by Seattle Reuse, the team that brings us tool libraries, and we go there all the time. It's just a great resource for Lake City, and I think that's an excellent alternative type of business too that will cater to different people. Number 2, I want to institute a vacancy tax that will add motivation to property owners to rent their spaces that are sitting vacant, like Bartels, and there's a long list of vacant buildings just sitting for no reason, empty, in Lake City and District 5. The increased buildings on the market should decrease price for rentals and open up more opportunities for vendors to participate in the Restored Seattle program. And third, I want to institute a guaranteed basic income. It's money that people below a certain income get paid no matter what. It's proven to reduce poverty, which reduces crime, and the vast majority of that money is spent locally, in the local economy. That money is used to pay employees at stores, and then they, in turn, use that money to spend locally. These steps will decrease crime, stimulate business, and should have a downward force on retail rents. I'm not sure how to respond to the question about unpermitted vendors, because there are many ways that you can have a food vending that's unpermitted, and they're still subject to the King County Department of Health standards, to my understanding.
Thank you, candidate James. I heard a slew of things throughout this, from decentralizing resources, right, and pushing for grants and investments into small businesses, but also how do we ensure that not only we're investing in those small businesses, but securing those small businesses as well, right, with funding around, break-ins and storefronts and things of that nature. Also, the resuming of the Seattle Restored program to be able to continue to amplify those efforts as it pertains to getting people in these buildings. So thank you all so much for that. Now let's shift to one of the most pressing issues across the district, right? Many people talked about this. It's so robust that we have two questions around this topic of housing. And so topic 4 is housing, and it does have 2 parts. We'll go with part 1, and everybody will answer that, and then we'll go through part 2 after. So with part 1, we've seen concentration of housing services in certain areas while homelessness continues to persist. How would you approach homelessness in District 5, and do you support mandatory treatment? And for this question, I will start with candidate James.
Okay, we need to stop the sweeps. They're unfair, they don't solve homelessness, and they further inconvenience and make people more disadvantaged. Instead, we need to provide services that will help them change their station. I'm looking forward to the mayor's plan to create more tiny home villages throughout the city, and hopefully that will help redistribute the services that unhoused people rely on more equitably. I'm a strong proponent of housing first. It's a proven model that allows people to access services more reliably and have better outcomes faster. We need to provide more case management to get people housed and connect them with health care, food access, and vocational services so they can change their station of life when they get to that point. In addition, we need to make sure that every unhoused person has a safe place. Realistically, there's not enough emergency, transitional, and affordable housing to do this immediately. So we need to designate safe camping and parking spaces and provide people with sanitization services and waste removal. This will keep our streets cleaner and people healthier. I do not support expansion of the Involuntary Treatment Act. I was recently involved with having somebody held under the Involuntary Treatment Act, and I have to tell you all, it's not the solution you're looking for. It took several providers, a lot of resources to convince people that it was necessary, and when he was put in inpatient, then he was just discharged into the same conditions that led to him needing treatment. So without services and solutions to support people that will change their station, we won't have any outcome. But if we provide services and the opportunity to change, they will be able to have better outcomes.
Awesome. Thank you, candidate James. Now moving to candidate Kong.
Yes, so housing in D5 is just not about supplies. It's about fairness, effectiveness, and dignity. On homelessness, what we're doing now is not working. D5 has taken on significant share of temporary housing, yet people are still sleeping outside. I will take actions to improve coordination and outcomes. We need to align housing, behavioral health, and case management so that people are not cycling through shelters without a pathway to stability. While I do have a PhD teaching teachers, during the pandemic, I knew there was a need for additional mental health needs. So I am finishing up my clinical mental health counseling program at Seattle U. So I understand these concerns deeply, and I'm ready to address it. Second, distribute services more equitably. I will advocate for a more balanced approach across Seattle so that the responsibility is shared and the resources we ask reflect our needs. Third, focus on prevention. The fastest way to reduce homelessness is to stop people from falling into it. That means support people who are on the edge of housing instability. On mandatory treatment, I believe people need access to treatment, but it must be also effective, humane, and legally sound. We should prioritize expanding voluntary treatment options and ensure a clear pathway to care for those in crisis.
Thank you, candidate Kong. Now, last but not least, candidate Jinx.
Thank you. I want to start by acknowledging something the community comments made clear. District 5 has stepped up. We've welcomed tiny villages, tent cities, shelters, permanent supportive housing, and yet people are still sleeping on our streets. That tells us the current approach isn't scaled to the crisis. My approach is housing first. The evidence is overwhelming. You cannot stabilize someone's life, address their addiction, their mental health, or help with job prospects if they don't have a stable place to sleep. Housing first doesn't mean housing only. It means housing is the foundation which everything else is built upon. On mandatory treatment specifically, I don't support it as a condition of receiving shelter. This is a crisis. We should not be making it harder for people to get off the street. What I do support is robust, accessible, voluntary treatment, including mental health services, addiction recovery, case management, connected directly to housing so people can access help the moment they're ready. On the geographic concentration issue, the community comments are exactly right. It's not equitable that Aurora and Lake City shoulder the vast majority of temporary housing, but this is a citywide responsibility, not just a District 5 one. We should work collectively together to hold other districts to meet their responsibility. Fighting between us here in District 5 is not the answer. We need to work together to make sure the rest of the city is doing their share. And finally, respected studies have shown that the lack of housing and affordability is the primary driver of homelessness. We need to prevent people falling into homelessness and help cover bills and really think about the coming impact of federal policy. We need to protect people in domestic violence situations, and we need to acknowledge that we are already seeing climate, reproductive, immigrant, and queer refugees in this state. We need to build to match the needs of this national crisis we are facing. That's why one of my primary goals is working to develop 1,000 affordable housing units.
Thank you, candidate Jinx. The current approach isn't scaled. That sounds like a systems issue, right? And something that I heard amongst a couple of you all was the housing first. And without services and solutions, there are no outcomes, right? And so the coordination around those outcomes and the system in place to bring housing, behavioral health, and case management all together. Thank you all for sharing those comments. Let's expand, that and kind of go back a little bit to the second part of this question. We're also hearing concerns about naturally affordable housing, buildings that exist today but aren't being maintained or protected. So what steps would you take to preserve and improve these housing options and address inequities in zoning and livability? And for this question, I will start with candidate Jinx.
This question gets something that I care deeply about. There are thousands of families in District 5 living naturally in naturally occurring affordable housing in older apartment buildings that are affordable, not because of the subsidy, but because they're older. And those families are invisible to most housing policy. They don't qualify for subsidized programs, and they're one rent hike or one building sale away from displacement. My husband and I experienced this when we had a toddler, and it was not okay. We were taken advantage of. First, I want to support strong tenant protections, just cause eviction laws, rent stabilization where legally permissible, and right to counsel for tenants facing eviction. Eviction is one of the most destabilizing events a family can experience, and people deserve legal support when they're facing displacement. Second, on building conditions including mold, unsanitary conditions, deferred maintenance, I'll push for better enforcement of existing housing codes and more resources for the city's rental inspection program so that affordable doesn't mean uninhabitable. I will also push for greater outreach to raise public awareness because many of the listed problems are already illegal, and I will work hard to make sure our neighbors know their rights and aren't taken advantage of. Third, the zoning equity point is critical. Decades of exclusionary zoning have forced renters onto the noisiest, most polluted corridors, while homeowners in single-family zones enjoy quiet streets and green spaces. I support eliminating exclusionary zoning, reforming occupancy rules, and removing parking minimums that drive up housing costs. Every neighborhood in District 5 should welcome a mix of housing types. I live on Sandpoint Way. This is my reality. I've had a spree shooting in front of my house. We have been upzoned, and really it's not a place to raise children. I grew up in Massachusetts in triple deckers. That's how you build community, and that's what I'd love to see here.
Thank you, candidate Jinx. Now moving to candidate Kong.
Yes, renters and affordable housing, there's a gap. And we focused on building new houses, but I don't think we've done enough to care for families relying on existing affordable homes. And I know that a lot of my working families of parents are living in those houses, and mold and unsafe neighborhoods and unsafe housing is not going to help them to thrive, and it's not going to help them to become the best version of themselves. I think teachers and first responders also need to be able to live in the community in affordable units, and they also deserve a safe place to live. I will pay attention to existing affordable housing so the tenants can live in safe conditions, no mold, and I also want to make sure that we do protect renters from displacement so that they don't have to worry about how much their rent will increase and if they're going to be able to afford it or if they're going to be pushed out. At the end of the day, it's about fairness, and no one deserves to live with instability in housing. This work is about really, again, turning listening into action and making sure housing in D5 works for the people who are already here.
Thank you, Candidate Kong. And last but not least, Candidate James.
Yeah, it's undeniable. We live in a segregated city. Many renters are still feeling the legacy of past injustice in our housing policy. I've never owned a house. I know the vulnerability of being a tenant and the fear that you can face retaliation for complaining about mold or other unhealthy living conditions, living in a basement apartment that you can only afford through the grace of being liked by your landlord who could raise your rent at any time. It's an insecure, it's an unstable, it's a vulnerable position, and many people are still in that position today with no path out. I'm excited to learn about Mayor Wilson's junk fee town halls that I think she just announced today, and her ongoing work on renters' rights. I'm an advocate for tenants' rights. Tenants are legally allowed to join or form or join unions like Puget Sound Tenants Union, which you can read more about at soundtenants.org. I want to create enforceable penalties for landlords who refuse to bargain with organized tenants. I also want to extend protections for tenants by making tenants a protected class under the Seattle Office of Civil Rights. I want to ban ratio utility billing. We need guaranteed basic income, which will provide renters the more ability to find housing that suits their needs if they're living in an unstable or unsafe situation. Guaranteed basic income is not only proven to reduce poverty, but it's also repeatedly been shown to improve housing security. It's unfair that the most densely populated areas in our city are also the most under-resourced. I favor increasing density across the whole city, especially in neighborhoods with neighborhood hubs, which will allow for increased height on construction in areas with lower density. I hope to carefully increase the density of less populated areas and connect them to transportation hubs with rapid, free transit.
Thank you, Candidate James. Densely populated areas are least resource. That is definitely the case. For myself, right, every year my rent goes up 7-10%, right? So that rent stabilization is crucial. And affordable does not mean inhabitable, right? I loved that comment as well. Just in ensuring that we're still providing substantive housing to individuals at an affordable price. Thank you all so much for that comment on the second question, those comments. So let's expand the conversation now into how we really think about growth and development across District 5. So topic 5 for you all is infrastructure and community development. There are big questions around land use. Light rail expansion, right, underutilized properties, and how we think about long-term growth. So what is your vision for development around light rail stations, and what do you think, what would you do with key sites like the former Fred Meyer location? Heard a few of you all talking about that earlier. So what is your vision for development, and how would you deal with key sites like Fred Meyer? And with this question, I will start with candidate Kong.
Thank you. Your question leads me to question whether we plan with intention of serving D5. Right now in D5, we have a disconnect. A 6-acre site sits empty in middle of a food and medicine desert. And that tells me that we need to better align our priorities. So here's my vision. First, activate that Fred Meyer site as a community center development. That means prioritizing a grocery store, healthcare access, mixed income housing, and community space, all in one place. I will work with the city, developers, and community partners to make this a true hub that meets the need of the community. Second, take a proactive role in land use near the light rail. We cannot let a speculative market dictate outcomes. I would push for strategic acquisition or private-public partnership to ensure these properties deliver housing, walkability, and essential services. I led an M&A project for a community bank in D5, and I have the skill sets to take on large projects with positive, community-focused outcomes. Third, maximize transit-oriented development. Light rail is a generational investment. We need zoning and planning that supports housing, small businesses, and accessibility around stations so that people can live, work, and access services without relying on a car. Lastly, evaluate underutilized land with community input. We should be asking, how can this space better connect communities to transit, housing, and opportunity while balancing environmental and recreational needs? At the end of the day, growth should benefit the people who already live here. So the work is about turning planning into action and making sure D5 gets the investment it deserves.
Thank you, candidate Kong. We'll go to candidate James next.
This question had a lot of information in it, and it's a very thorough question. I'm not going to comment specifically on the lots near the light rail station on 130th, but instead I'll just say in general, I strongly favor building a lot of housing near transportation hubs. And as I said, I believe that transportation hubs should have rapid free bus rides between different neighborhood hubs. So on Fred Meyer, I think this should be a wake-up call that it's unsafe to let our food supply be tied to stock market speculation. I favor a solution that is responsive to the needs of the community and not the interests of shareholders. But it's not up to me. I'm disappointed that there hasn't been a community task force formed to identify solutions and a pathway to achieve them. I favor a municipal grocery store. There are models, public grocers like Azalea Fresh in Atlanta, the Defense Commissary Agency that operates nationwide. Both of these examples provide reliable and more affordable groceries than their corporate competitors. If it hasn't already happened by the time I'm elected, I'll form a local task force to find a solution and chart a path to achieve it. I will mention a couple ideas that I've heard that I support. I've heard people talk about reallocating some of the $40 million set aside for the Lake City Community Center to be built with housing above it, to move the housing, to purchase the Fred Meyer lot, and to relocate the housing to above Fred Meyer. And then the community center would be built as a standalone building on its own, like all other community centers across Seattle. I've heard other people suggest that the building should be managed or owned by a Seattle social housing developer because mixed income housing is the best model. And there's no reason to have an external nonprofit running when we have a local organization to do it.
Thank you, candidate James. And now, last but not least, candidate Jinx.
Thank you. So let me take the Fred Meyer first because I know for all of us in this room, this is very personal. We didn't just lose our place for groceries. We lost a third space where we run into our neighbors. We lost our last pharmacy. It has been really challenging and kind of devastating to my family, and I know to families across the Lake City. It left families, seniors, and people without cars stranded in a food and medicine desert, and 4 blocks from the planned community center, a 6-acre lot sits empty now. That's a failure of city leadership. That should have been seen and known that it was coming, and I intend to fix it. Today, my campaign manager started. He is with UFCW 3000, the grocery store union, and I really am very excited to have him join and really think about what we can do. I would push for the city to use every tool available: zoning incentives, direct negotiation with the property owner, community land trust models, just thinking a lot that we can do to bring this back to our city. And yes, it should be a mixed use development: grocery on the ground floor, affordable housing above, community space woven in. I would personally love to see something like a community theater in Lake City, something to draw people to our community from other neighborhoods to spend money and play and enjoy our diversity like we do, and help support our businesses. On light rail station growth and the speculative market, this is where we need to be aggressive and strategic. 2 properties worth $8 and $19 million are a warning sign. If we let the market dictate development around our stations, we'll get luxury apartments and no affordability. I support the city acquiring land near light rail stations before prices climb higher, partnering with nonprofit developers, and using inclusionary zoning to guarantee affordable units in every transit-oriented development. On Jackson Park Golf Course, it spans 2 light rail stations. Realistically, it's a barrier to transit-oriented development, and I'm open to a community conversation where we talk about what we can do there, because that's a really valuable public resource.
Thank you, candidate Jinx. And yes, this is a very sensitive topic for everyone in this room. I've heard the mixed-use development side of things, but then also, right, just the whole notion of having a 6-acre site that's just sitting empty right now. And so how do we activate that? Love the push for community task force and getting the community involved, community voices around this, the UCFW 3000 as well. But also just a shameless plug on ETOD, right? There is a group, a community advisory group as well with equitable transit-oriented development, and it's through OPCD as well. I also see one of my ETOD members in the room. So also as far as equitable transit, there's a whole community advisory group around that as well. So great. Finally, let's talk about public safety, right? An issue that's impacting everyone in this community. So topic 6 is really about public safety. This is an area where community is clearly divided, particularly around surveillance, policing, right, and response strategies. And so what is your overall approach to public safety, and how do you balance safety with community trust? And for this question, I will start with candidate Jinx.
Public safety has to be broader than policing. It has to be centered on prevention and community well-being. But I also want to be real. People in District 5 are experiencing break-ins. They're worried about safety in many parts of District 5, and we deserve to feel safe in our neighborhoods. Both these things are true. My approach has 3 parts. First, better emergency response. I'll push for community responder programs that send mental health professionals and social workers, not armed officers, to behavioral health and social service calls. I'm going to go off script here a little bit. I ran 3 years ago for this seat, and I said we would not be able to hire 500 police, and we haven't. We hired 1 person 2 years ago and less than 200 last year. We need to fund our care program. We need behavioral health response models. These are things that we can actually do while we figure out other problems. I want us to actually be safer and feel safer, and not just say things to, speak to this division in our community. Let's fund what we can. I'm meeting with the care program next week and with Chief Amy Barden to understand what we can do. I'm going to speak with ProTech, the union there, because the SPA contract has not honestly done a great job with supporting care, to see what we can do, because they've bound the arms of our community responses, and we're going to have to do creative solution solving. Prevention, I've worked on community violence intervention. After the Parkland shootings, I organized one of the largest nation a gun buyback program with 2 moms. Like, I take this seriously. I worked with the sheriff's office. I am not a thoughts and prayers person at all. I want us to be safer. I want our children to be safer, and it motivates me every single day. I'm sorry if I misthink surveillance. It should be a community conversation. I don't think it's happening in District 5 yet, and I appreciate the pause, but it is something we should all talk about.
Thank you, candidate Jinx. Now moving to candidate Kong.
Yeah, so public safety is one of the most important issues I hear across D5. And what I hear is this: people want to feel safe, but they also want solutions that are fair, effective, and build trust. So my approach is balanced and focused on outcomes. First, improve response times and staffing. When people call for help, they need timely response. I support ensuring we have adequate staffing for urgent situations, especially in high needs. Second, invest in prevention and alternatives. Not every call requires a police response. We need to expand behavioral health services, crisis response teams, and community-based programs that can address the root of the causes. Third, set clear standards for technology and surveillance. I understand why some neighbors want tools like the cameras, but we must also balance safety with privacy and civil rights. That means transparent policies, community input, and clear accountability for how these tools are used. Lastly, strengthen coordination and accountability. Public safety works best when departments, public health, and community organizations are aligned with clear goals and expectations to reduce harm and improve outcomes. And across all of this, we must build trust. As I'm doing now, I will show up, listen, and follow through. We don't need promises, we need follow through. Safety is not just about policy, it's about whether our neighbors feel safe to live, work, belong, and thrive in their everyday lives.
Thank you, candidate Kong. And last but not least, candidate James.
Public safety is many people's biggest concern, and it's mine too. Response time for urgent calls is slow, and I agree with my other candidates that if we unburden police from responding to calls they're not needed for, it will increase their response time on calls they're needed for. We can do that by expanding the care team and allowing them to dispatch on their own. That will free the SPD up from participating in calls where their presence is not necessary. I'm also meeting with Chief Barton next week, so maybe I'll see you there. And I also want to say, surveillance doesn't make us safer. Let's say it again, surveillance doesn't make us safer. And it's not just me saying that. There's a 2019 study by the Department of Justice reviewing 40 years of information about surveillance, and they found that it's not a standalone crime prevention. It doesn't prevent crime. There's a small effect in parking lots. And I have an example. Some friends of mine who own a business on Lake City they had experienced a theft where someone accessed their payment processing hardware and transferred $500 from the store account to their personal account. The entire thing was captured on video. They reported it, filed the police report, talked to their insurance. There was no conclusion. They just out that money. It was all on video. There's a paper trail or a digital trail. I can't believe that was just unresolved. But because surveillance doesn't make it safer, we should terminate Axon's contract, all their contracts with Seattle. We pay over $7 million a year for ICE to kidnap people from our streets and disappear them into detention centers. We cannot feed the corporate surveillance machine. We're exposing our most vulnerable neighbors to even more danger. It's not reasonable to expect the data to exist but not be accessed. DOJ should have taught us that. Axon works closely with ICE and has active contracts with ICE. The best way to reduce crime is by reducing poverty. That's right.
Thank you, candidate James. Heard a slew of things around this as well, from increasing response times. I think that was a universal yes to that. And then unburdening the police as well on calls that are not needed, right? That are not needed for, and then expanding the care team, right? I heard that a few times as well in talking about the care team expansion. But then how do we also improve accountability and the outcomes around that? In all of these questions, I have heard around the outcomes, right? And that is something that I feel like that the city struggles with. We are really good at outputs, but how do we move beyond outputs to long-term outcomes that directly impact community? And so I appreciate you all touching on those outcomes. Now we're going to open it up to the audience. We'll take 3 questions, and each candidate will have 1 minute to respond. We do have the 3 individuals right up here with the 3 questions, and then we will start. Being that you kicked us off, candidate Jinx, the last time, you can kick us off, Silas, this time.
Okay. The unknown, and I just have to go and dry. Okay.
Hello, my name is Brian, and I'm in 12th grade at Ingram High School. If you are elected, how will you support students in K through 12 schools so they learn in a safe environment and receive extra support in the community?
Yeah, I support the school board in making decisions about that themselves. I know a lot of neighbors who have kids who go to Ingram. I don't personally have any children, but I think it's important to have a safe community. So when people are leaving school and around, that they have safe community resources.
Awesome. And now we will have candidate Kong respond as well. Do you mind to repeat the question?
If you are elected, how will you support students in K through 12 schools so they learn in a safe environment and receive extra support in the community?
Thank you, Brian, for that question. As an educator, teaching teachers how to work with multilingual learners, that is exactly what I aim to do and have been doing for the last 30 years. I believe in wraparound services, so it's not just during the school time. We have to think about the socio-cultural context of where our students are coming from. Did they have their meals? Do they have a warm place to go back to? Do they have transportation? So these are things that we have to think about when we want our students to feel that they can learn and be safe. And school safety is definitely a concern. And I think we can do a lot by hearing from the students. After the tragedy that had happened at Rainier, we needed to hear from the students and elevate their voices because they have really good ideas. So I am interested in leaning into the students for possible partnership and solutions.
Awesome. Thank you so much, candidate Kong. Last but not least, candidate Jinx.
Thank you for your question. I, have a lot of interest in this space and do a lot with the schools. I was at the superintendent listening session last night, and one of the things I'm very interested in is restarting meetings between the school board, the mayor, and city council, because there's a lot of needs around, for example, ice or food or community centers that we can provide. I also went to the Bright Futures fundraiser that you have at Ingram, and I was shocked to learn 30% of students are accessing that space to get food and clothes and shelter, and that's something the community and the city should be supporting. I was really grateful to be able to go. But overall, things like counselors are not social workers. We need counselors in our schools. We need to support mental health in schools. We need to have better connection between families and students and our community. And I really am excited about youth being engaged in community and bringing your voice to council.
Thank you. So the next question.
Yeah. Hi, my name is Alder. I'm in 10th grade at Lakeside, and I participate at Lake City Collective. So our organization made the redevelopment of Little Brook Park possible and is now advocating for the full construction of the Little Brook Plaza, and our multicultural center, the only 2 community-led resilience projects in District 5. How do you support these and similar? Would you support these and similar projects, and if so, how?
Awesome. For this question, we'll start with candidate Kong.
Well, thank you for your activism and leadership. I think that's really wonderful that you are in the community. Of course, as somebody who has volunteered in the community, especially elevating the students of color voices, I think it's important for us to make sure that youth are not only at the table, but have the resources, the grants, to be able to realize the projections. I think when we design something that the youth will be using, you probably have the best idea for a design. So we think that input is necessary. But we also think it's a really important opportunity to engage in financial literacy. What does project management look like? So a lot of the mentoring can happen. And I will assure that we make that possible because I've been doing that for the last 30 years.
Thank you, candidate Kong. Do you mind to repeat the question, please?
Yeah. So how would you support projects such as the Little Brook Plaza and the Lake City Collective Multicultural Center, and if so, how?
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. My children have also volunteered in that space. Environmental justice is my North Star. Supporting resilience projects is extremely important to me as we see hotter summers with smoke and colder winters. So every community deserves that kind of space. I think that, one of the things that I've seen is access to parks is equitable. I've been to the park there, and a lot of people treat it like a dog park, which is not. Kids should have access to parks and playgrounds of their own. As someone who's a stay-at-home mom for 14 years, I know how important that place is as a connectivity spot. But really, I think what I would do is meet with Lake City Collective and support the great work that you've done and lift up other projects across the city and across District 5 and make sure that we have more of them. You're doing great work.
Awesome. Thank you.
I don't know, 10
Candidate
seconds
James.
more.
And last but not least, candidate James.
I am a big fan of an advisory board, and I would love to have a youth advisory group consulting with me as a city council person. And I think that that's a great idea to have them have economic input, be able to have budgetary influence, and maybe be able to allocate funds to different programs and have an advisory role. I also am a strong supporter of environmental justice. There's not a lot we can do that will have a global impact in the city, but we can really impact the way that we everybody across the board who is the lowest contributor to environmental climate change experiences it most severely. And that's true in Seattle, too, where there's more people living around transit corridors. And I want to reallocate the funding to the environmental equity, the environmental justice grant program, which has been cut in funding this year.
Thank you, candidate James. And the last question from the audience.
Hi, my name's Allison. I'm in 12th grade at Nathan Hale High School. If you could solve one problem in our district, what would that be?
Awesome. For this question, we will start with candidate James.
Wow. I think it would be housing. Environmental justice, honestly, I'll go back to that, is, like I said, how I think about everything, and that's housing density. It's meeting our climate goals. That would be what it'd be, which means that we have more dense housing, we have our public transportation system, we have climate resilience centers, we have pollinator pathways, we have places for people to go and enjoy and walk around, we have parks. There's so many things that are based that don't seem like they're environmental answers and solutions, but they really are, and give us guidance to build a sustainable future. Right now, we're nowhere near meeting our goals, and that's frankly just terrible. So if we can actually, I would love a climate select community for City Council where we decide a lot of our decisions in a way that secures a future for our youth and for future generations.
Thank you, candidate James. Now moving to candidate James, and then we'll wrap around. Sorry.
I went to Nathan Hale too, so go Raiders. So you, being in high school now, all have access to the Seattle Promise. That's not something we had when we were in school. Now a lot of people who are, mid-career or late career, or even just early career, might need to find a new career. And so can I say two things? I'm going to say two things. I would expand the Seattle Promise to make 2 years of free school available to anybody who needs it. There's a lot of programs that bridge that gap, but there's gaps. And I think with people being laid off from even tech companies, a lot of people might need retraining. And our fantastic Seattle colleges is a really good way to do that. We have green, AI-proof jobs. And the second thing, would be guaranteed basic income that'll improve housing security for people and help keep people stay away from being homeless.
Awesome. Thank you so much to the candidate responses and for those 3 questions coming from the audience from our youth, because they are our future, right? And they, may be in you all's seats here in the next few years, right? Awesome. So we're going to move into closing remarks. Oh, I'm so sorry. I just skipped you. My apologies, candidate Craig.
No problem. I didn't know
Please.
if we were running
No.
late.
Please
Yes,
continue.
yes. Well, public safety is, I said, one of the most important things. Yes, housing is important. Yes, green space is important. But unless we feel safe to go to school, to go to work, and to live the best version of our life, then I don't think we can exist in a community. And right now, when we talk about public safety, that means being safe from some of the attacks that's happening in our community. So what can we do? And I have been a fan of Seattle Connections. Chamber of Connections says, if you at least know one neighbor that you can go to, one trusted friend. And so what I'm doing now is building that community, walking with neighbors, activating these open spaces with positivity. In April, we're gonna have afternoon tea in the parks. Come, no agenda, just get to know your neighbors, and let's create a safe place to live.
Thank you so much, Candidate Kong. And now we're going to move into our closing remarks. Each candidate will have 1 minute, and we'll begin with the candidate on the right. So we started with candidate James. We started with candidate Jinx the last time, so we'll start with candidate James and work our way down, and then we'll close out with candidate Jinx.
Okay. First I'd like to thank Lake City Collective for hosting this event and giving us the opportunity to connect with the community. Thank you, Cesar. Thank you. And thank you to the other candidates. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Nilu. It's an honor to share the stage. And thank you, Dee. It's an honor to share the stage with you, or the chairs, as it were. To all the people here and watching on the live stream, I want to say that I will represent you. Your needs are the same needs I have. This is the first time I've done anything like this. I'm not a millionaire. I don't have a 6-figure income. I know what it's like to not have a voice. I'm only able to do this because of the possibility of public funding through the Democracy Voucher program. And thank you to Democracy Vouchers for giving me the chance to do this. It wouldn't have been a possibility at all. I know what it's like to have to budget for groceries and rent and healthcare, to have transportation that doesn't work for me. I've called in wellness checks and waited for hours for the police to come and say he's fine, and then only days later have to have somebody put in involuntary treatment. Like you, I love District 5. This is my home. I love it here, but I also know we can do better. Keep sending me questions and support. You can message me and see all my policies and ways that we can work together at silasforseattle.com. Thank you.
Thank you, candidate James. And now, candidate Kong.
I'm running for Seattle City Council District 5 position because I believe District 5 deserves more. More attention, more investment, and more accountability. This is one of the most diverse and dynamic part of the city, and yet, too often, it's been overlooked. I bring the lived experience as an educator, community organizer, union member, and a founder of a community bank in D5, and as a neighbor in D5 for the last 30 years. But just as important, I have a commitment to show up and to follow through. I will continue to hang out in local coffee shops, and I'll continue to walk D5, and I hope you'll join me and share your ideas and concerns. At the end of the day, the work is about turning listening into action. Support democracy vouchers and vote for a council member who will fight for D5 every day. I would be honored to earn your support, democracy vouchers, and vote. And thank you again for Lake City Collective and Kraken, proudly wearing my jersey, and everyone in the audience, as well as people on the online. Thank you for your commitment to civic engagement and civic education.
Thank you, Candidate Kong. And last but not least, Candidate Jinx.
Thank you. Well, you've heard a lot about policy tonight, so I'll try to keep it to basics. Right now, too many of our neighbors feel like City Hall is not watching out for them. We lost our grocery store, and somehow nobody saw that coming. Our sidewalks are incomplete, our small businesses are struggling, people are still sleeping on our streets, and we still don't have enough services to meet need. And frankly, our immigrant and queer communities are under federal attack. I'm running because I believe blue cities like Seattle can prove, must prove, that progressive values deliver real results. I actually think that's how we save our democracy. We need better housing, safer streets, a grocery store you can walk to, a council member who actually shows up and who lets you hold them accountable. I would want to be held accountable. And somewhere that we embrace and celebrate our diversity and where we can feel safe, all of us. I've been endorsed by the Working Families Party, Senator Noel Frame, and our own Representative Daria Farivar here where we are in the 46th district, and many others. I'd be honored to earn your support, and yes, your democracy vouchers too, a program that I have worked on. And you can learn more about me at my campaign at neighborsfornilu.org. I love emails, we'll respond to them, we'll meet for coffees and address questions. And really thank you all for participating and showing up. Democracy means a lot to me. It's what I work on every day, and this is what it looks like.
Thank you, Candidate Jinx. Thank you to all of our candidates for your time, your energy, and your willingness to step up and to serve. Thank you to everyone here in the room as well, and to those watching from home. We appreciate you for being engaged in this process. I would also like to thank all of the volunteers, including our youth, and to the Lake City Collective for holding space so the youth can see the art of the possible. And a special thank you to the Seattle Kraken for hosting us, and to the City of Seattle's Democracy Voucher program for supporting civic participation. I encourage everyone to learn more, stay involved, and visit seattle.gov/democracyvoucher to learn more. My name is Damarlin Sisney, and it has been a pleasure to be your moderator for the District 5 Candidate Forum. Hope you all have a good night.